Let me tell you something. When three leather-clad bikers surrounded my 7-month pregnant wife in our driveway while she was just trying to carry in groceries, I thought maybe it was just random road rage. Wrong place, wrong time. But then I glanced across the street, and there's Delilah, our beloved HOA president, standing on her porch with a smirk, looking like she's front row at her favorite Netflix drama. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't random at all. It was a hit job courtesy of the HOA. Now picture me at the kitchen window, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, watching these Sons of Anarchy wannabes circle Elena. You could hear the gravel crunch under their steel-toed boots like bones breaking. The biggest guy, a skull bandana barely hiding his receding hairline, stomps up so close that Elena drops her groceries on the concrete. "Lady, there's going to be consequences for your husband's non-compliance," he growls, sounding like he's reading lines he can barely remember. Elena, cool as ice, doesn't flinch, doesn't whimper, just scoops up her groceries and walks inside like she's the only adult in the room. And right then I realized these idiots had absolutely no clue what they'd gotten themselves into. See, I spent 12 years as a military contractor. That teaches you a couple things about threats, about eliminating problems, about what happens when people make your family their business. In about 3 minutes, those clowns would be back at my door, not to threaten, but to beg me to call off their nightmare. Delilah was about to learn what happens when you mess with a soldier's pregnant wife. And yeah, what would you do if some HOA goons threatened your family over landscaping? I bet you got your own stories. Drop your location below. I'll wait. Let me back up a sec. My name's Marcus Donovan, 45, ex-military logistics. My wife Elena is a pediatric nurse, tough sweet 32, pregnant with our first kid. We moved to Willowbrook Estates 6 months ago, spent every penny we'd ever saved on a corner lot house, wanted space, wanted peace, all that suburban dream stuff. On the surface, this place is all picture-perfect lawns and people who actually use those little plastic bags when they walk their dogs. But scratch the paint, and you'll find the real ruler of this kingdom, Delilah Hartwell. 6 years unopposed as HOA president real estate agent on the side, she makes a living keeping property values high and squashing anything that doesn't fit her Stepford vision. Our trouble started because, get this, I swapped the thirsty grass for drought-resistant native plants. County encouraged it, saves water, helps the environment. 2 days after my landscaper finished, Delilah's on my porch with a violation notice. Unapproved landscaping material, she says, like I put in a car graveyard out front. I wasn't having it. 3 days later, after reading every bylaw, county, and state code, I filed an appeal stacked with evidence from the county water board. And that's when the weekly harassment started. We got violations for fence height, mailbox style, even tree pruning stuff that matched half the neighborhood. But here's the kicker. Delilah's friends had the same violations, but somehow she just missed those. Martha Kowalski, the widow down the street, $8,000 in fines for a garden gnome. The young couple with solar panels harassed for unsightly equipment, even though it probably bumped up their home value. Our house became ground zero for HOA surveillance. I put up security cameras after Elena mentioned strange cars cruising by. Sure enough, caught board members photographing our place like we were cooking meth. Elena, bless her, just wanted peace. "Can't we just plant grass and avoid the drama?" she'd ask. But I've seen too many bullies in my day. Backing down never solves a thing. Each notice that landed on our porch was cheaper than the last, like Delilah was rationing toner for her intimidation campaign. She kept threatening us with fines, legal action, liens on the property. Lady had clearly never dealt with someone who'd coordinated supply chains under fire. 3 weeks after my appeal, she called an emergency HOA meeting conveniently scheduled for when Elena was working, and I had physical therapy. At this meeting, 4 residents, 3 of them Delilah's cronies, they passed an immediate $2,500 fine plus $50 a day until I conformed. The whole show lasted 12 minutes. What Delilah didn't expect, I'd read every word of the HOA governing documents, all 87 pages. There it was, a clause requiring 72 hours notice for emergency meetings. She'd given 48. Boom, her meeting was dead on arrival. I wrote up a challenge, cited all the violations, and delivered enough certified copies to wallpaper her McMansion. And it got better. I found Delilah had illegally amended the bylaws twice without a vote. Every fine over $100 for the past year and a half. Worthless. So I sent letters certified to all 127 homeowners explaining how they'd been robbed. Within 2 days, 23 families reached out. Martha with her garden gnome fiasco. The solar panel couple. Dorothy fined for painting her door the wrong shade of blue even though it matched the approved color chart. Suddenly, the neighborhood was showing up at my door, each with their own horror stories, each fine more bogus than the last. Delilah's next move was textbook. She threatened liens, told mortgage companies that widespread property violations were tanking home values. So I rallied the Neighborhood Legal Coalition class action challenge, the works. That's when Delilah escalated, hired executive protection services. 2 guys in polos, a white Explorer, magnetic signs. They'd sit across from my house, watch us issue trespassing warnings for walking on the sidewalk. Total joke. Except I recognized one of the guards, Jimmy, from my jogging route, former military. He started sharing info. Turns out Delilah's brother-in-law owned the company, and their contract literally said their job was to make certain residents uncomfortable enough to consider relocating. Jimmy showed me cell phone photos, old Martha getting harassed over her garden gnome, Elena being followed to her car. That's when I got mad, real mad. But you can't just get mad, you got to get smart. I started documenting everything, violations, intimidation, every single law those rental cops were breaking. Jimmy also let slip that the serious intimidation was being subcontracted to the Ironwood Riders, a motorcycle club led by Delilah's nephew Randy, a 28-year-old basement dweller with a rap sheet. Now the sound of those bikes roaring through the neighborhood was our new alarm clock. But while Delilah thought she was tightening her grip, I was building a coalition, first at Murphy's Diner, then at the community center. We brought in Phyllis, a retired attorney, and Diego, a former city councilman with media contacts. Our digital team built a secure database, every document, every violation cross-referenced and organized. And then the twist, Delilah tried to shut us down with noise complaints, zoning threats, rumors about my business. The more desperate she got, the more evidence we piled up. Then the game changed for good. One night, my cameras caught Delilah behind the community center handing Randy an envelope thick with cash, telling him whatever it takes to get them out. I had it all, video, audio, and a motive. That's when the bikers showed up in my driveway while I was at PT Elena alone. Groceries scattered, 3 leather-clad idiots spouting off lines Delilah had written. But Elena, God bless her, stood her ground, picked up her groceries, and walked inside. When I got the call, I broke every speed limit getting home. First thing I did, called in some favors. Ran plates, checked warrants, background checks. Turns out Randy had an outstanding warrant. Jake was violating parole. Tommy missed court-ordered classes. By 3:17 that afternoon, Randy was behind bars, and the other 2 showed up at my door, shaking like leaves, apologizing, offering to testify. I got their statements recorded, notarized, airtight, and word spread. Suddenly, neighbors realized Delilah wasn't invincible. But I wasn't done. We filed complaints, city, state, and federal, dug into HOA records. That's when we found the motherlode, Delilah's real estate company, had never built the required affordable homes. Instead, she pocketed $340,000 in HOA funds through shell companies billed the association for work never performed, even took vacations disguised as property management conferences. Martha, our coalition bookkeeper, tracked every dollar. The more we dug, the uglier it got. $480,000 stolen in 6 years. Elena found me at the kitchen table one night, evidence spread out like a crime scene. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. Not a ghost, I told her. Just found Delilah's smoking gun. The final act was a masterpiece. We scheduled a community meeting, invited the city media and law enforcement. Delilah, realizing she was cornered, called for an emergency special assessment, $5,000 from every household to pay for her legal defense. It flopped. Martha stood up, demanded a full audit. Delilah's support evaporated overnight. Then desperate Delilah tried to play the victim, filed a restraining order against me, faked audio recordings, even went on TV with crocodile tears. But the truth was, our evidence file was ironclad. Her own private investigator, hired to dig dirt on me instead, found more evidence against her and turned it over to prosecutors. The night of the meeting, 312 residents filled Sacred Heart Church. Every chair, every corner packed. I walked up to that podium, Elena by my side, and laid out the evidence. Slide after slide, embezzlement, fraud, intimidation, recordings of Delilah's own voice. And then Detective Martinez stood up and arrested her on the spot. Handcuffs clicking, best sound I've heard in years. The vote to dissolve the HOA board was unanimous. We elected new leadership committed to full transparency. 6 months later, Delilah's house, now our community center, hosts barbecues and scholarships for local kids. Property values are up, people are happy, and Elena and I walk our daughter through gardens planted with the same native flowers that started this whole war. Neighbors stop to chat. Kids play without fear, and the old air of suspicion is gone. You want to know what justice looks like? It's a neighborhood that stands together against a bully and wins. So now it's your turn. Drop your HOA horror story in the comments. I read every single one. If you've ever tangled with a petty tyrant or watched your community suffer under a power-hungry board, know this: you've got more power than you think. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to read the fine print and fight back. So share your story, speak your truth. Let's make sure the next Delilah never gets the chance.